Hermawan, perusahaan di Indonesia bagaimana Hermawan melihatnya? Apakah cukup tanggap ya dengan menyiasati krisis
Sekarang
ini?
sudah jauh lebih bagus daripada krisis 1998 ya. When we were facing the crisis 1998, many big companies in Indonesia were panic because they were not ready. But now they are relatively much better prepared compared to the 1998. And as you see, in Indonesia right now, like there is no big crisis. Yeah? We still grow, our economy still grow with 11% in the first quarter, and we are much better relatively to our neighbors. This is Indonesia time.
Yeah, let's hope it stays that way. Mudah-mudahan kita tidak terlalu merasakan krisisnya karena memang belum ada krisis, bukan karena kita.
Yeah, and Professor Philip Kotler just visited Obama former school, you know. So we are very lucky. Obama used to be in Jakarta for 4 years, but not 40 years, right?
Yeah, and we should use that as our marketing for Indonesia.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, let's take another little break dan pemirsa tetaplah bersama kami. Special Dialogue akan segera kembali. Iya, kita lanjutkan Special Dialogue Marketing in Turbulent Times. Professor, we talked about the changing landscape because of the global economic crisis now. After this turbulence and when we maybe settle down to a little bit of normalcy, what kind of landscape will we see? I mean, we've seen how big American companies, you know, they basically fail, lose businesses. In the meantime, we have India, China, Brazil. What's happening, do you think?
Yes, there's a very fundamental change. Some people have noted that the power in the world was very different at different times. For example, Europe was the center, in a sense, of the power from the 15th to the 18th century, maybe the 19th in part. And then the United States became very powerful in the 19th and 20th century. But we believe there's no doubt in our mind that Asia is now going to be the powerhouse in the 21st century and on. Now, what are the reasons for that? Partly because Asia very quickly learned high technology. They skipped some stages. They didn't go through all the learning. They leapfrogged, and they ended up with high technology produced at low cost. Now, that is quite an advantage for Asia. So we depend on Asia for so many components, for certainly everything connected with the electronic revolution and so on.
So do you think there's going to be sort of like more balancing in the world now in terms of development, wealth, distribution of wealth?
Yes. I think if you look at the statistics on the size of middle classes, you will see that the middle classes in Asia have been growing very strongly. In fact, there's more middle-class people in Asia than in the rest of the world. That's possible. Secondly, in Asia, there's also two other things happening. You have very affluent people, high wealth, high net worth individuals, increasingly found. In fact, someone says something like 24% of the high wealth individuals around the world may be in Asia.
Is Europe and the United States, are they worried about this changing landscape, do you think, or
they should worry?
Are they responding?
But there's nothing you can do about this. You see, what's happening is companies in this part of the world are growing stronger. We have of the Fortune 500 companies that are listed by Fortune magazine, about 100 or so are from Asia. I'm talking about multinationals. In the emerging world, many companies now are global companies that have come from Asia. A number of them, of course, from Japan, which got an earlier start, but also other countries as well. So we think that basically much of the dynamism is going to come from this part of the world.
But on the other hand, this is where the part of the world where there are more poverty. And actually, although there are more and more affluent people, there are also more and more poor people who don't have access to production, to wealth, and so on. I mean,
well, here's the story. How do you see the world's problem today? Is it one of overproduction and overcapacity, where we cannot sell enough of the things we could make? Or should we translate the problem as one of underconsumption? Namely, that there's so many people, maybe 4 billion people, who want to buy another TV set, or even the first one, or a computer, and they don't have the means. As a matter of fact, if we could help the poor get better off, even for a selfish reason, we should do it, because then there will be markets for the products. How many TV sets can a middle-class person have? How much could he eat? So basically, we have a selfish and an altruistic reason to help the poor. But I don't think we've been helping them in the right way. We've been sending foreign aid, and a recent book that's getting a lot of attention by a woman from Africa, she says it's all a waste to do it that way. We are writing a book now that's going to be published in June, this June, called Up and Out of Poverty. The subtitle is Social Marketing Solution. Namely, instead of being an economist looking at the global problem of poverty, we are in the field figuring out how to get families to use bed nets so their children don't get malaria, and also how to handle TB and how to get the use of condoms so people don't have unplanned children and don't catch HIV, AIDS. So we have 14 or so cases where social marketing has absolutely worked to reduce maybe family sizes by intention, not because some people have more children than they ever intended. And also where lifestyles are being improved through using the concepts and the power of social marketing thinking.
Okay, but who should be doing the social marketing? We're talking about maybe the CSRs being conducted by companies?
See, I think the waste really is when it's government handing money to government to be dispensed, at which point we think only 15%, 1/5, gets to the final users. No, I'm talking about some very powerful nonprofit organizations. So, of course, World Vision, the population, there's several of them, Bill Gates's organization, all of them are right in the field there, and they're actually building health clinics and schools and so on. That's the level at which we have to help the poor escape from poverty.
Ya, Pak Hermawan, kalau di Indonesia kan kita sudah ada sekarang perusahaan harus memiliki CSR atau diwajibkan melakukan CSR. Dan ini tapi, menurut Pak Hermawan bagaimana?
Ya, tapi there is a interesting research in Asia is very different from the West. Actually, this is a research that in Asia people give fund for charity because of religion, because of the belief, not based on profit oriented.
Actually, they're much more socially aware than the government.
There must be incentive, right? Yes. Here, based on research in Asia and Indonesia, because Muslim must give 2.5%, Christian 10%.
So the culture of philanthropy,
more because of the culture, more because of the religion. That is typical Asia and typical Indonesia.
Okay, we'll take another break, but we will continue. Ya, pemirsa tetaplah bersama kami. Kami akan segera kembali. Ya, kita lanjutkan Special Dialogue Marketing in Turbulent Times bersama Profesor Philip Kotler. Pak Hermawan tadi mengatakan bahwa di Indonesia itu ya filantropi dan CSR dan memberi ya kepada
based on the culture,
based on the belief in this
not
case,
based on incentive.
And it's nothing to do with the government. Often in Indonesia, when there are disasters, the people actually they act much more active. They're much more
spontaneously.
Spontaneous. They're better at giving and helping than the governments. Do you have thoughts on this, perhaps?
Well, it happens in different places. For example, when we had Katrina, the government was kind of slow in acting, but we had lots of money raised by people who were sympathetic with the problem. There is a tendency to say that where countries have high taxes, as they do in Scandinavia, there's less of a chance of spontaneous giving because people feel that it's the government's job to use the tax money in any way. Whereas in the United States we have low tax rates, so we tend to give much more to charity as personal.
Let me go back to now the shifting power from the West to the East, particularly to the ASEAN countries and India and China and the rise in consumption and so on. But In terms